Okay, so a very good evening to you, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us again. Yes, thank you so much for joining us again on the final conclusion on the series on Joseph. Have you enjoyed this series? Tell me about it. Have you enjoyed this series? Like from the very first part to part two to part three and to part four that we're taking today. Have you enjoyed this series? Has it been worth your while? Has it been something that you really love participating in, and you have learned a lot of things on this journey? Tell me about it. Have you enjoyed this particular series? I have enjoyed this series. In fact, I feel so sad that it's coming to an end today, but we need to end and we need to go into another series, which I will probably let you know as we begin the month of March, right? This is the last in the series for Joseph, and this ends the month of February for us. How has February been for you? Welcome to the Upgrade Mastery just for you. And we do this every Fridays from 7 p.m. to the 8 p.m. And we basically get to do a recap of our week, what we have learned, the challenges we've faced, and the learnings we've gotten from the week. So, how was your week? And interestingly, this is the last week in the month of February. This also is the last day in the month of February. So, February has been an amazing, amazing month so far. How has it been for you? What have you learned? What has stood out for you? What are the challenges you faced? Have you been able to overcome them? Tell me, what's it been like for you the whole of February, right? So let's talk about it a bit before we get into the concluding part of Joseph. The concluding part of Joseph is quite brief, but it's quite amazing, right? Because we're going to go through the book of Genesis 46 through to Genesis chapter 50, right? So we take about 5 chapters and then we'll wrap it up. And we have 5 lessons to learn from this last part of Joseph. So far, it has been an interesting series. Well, before we get back to Joseph, tell me, how's your week? Like, how was your week? What were the things that happened for you? What were the challenges you faced? How were you able to overcome them? What did you learn in February? Like, what did February teach you? you know, every time we are learning, right? We are like a sponge. We are taking in information, we are taking in experiences. So we are always learning. So what learnings have you had this February that you can look back and say, wow, it has been an amazing, amazing February for me. All the learnings I've gathered so far in the month. So what are the learnings you've had this February? Tell me about it. What are some of the things that have stood out for you this month of February? It has been an amazing month. So many lessons, so many activities, so many things to do. But here we are at this point. But it's not about me. Like we say, this is Upgrade Mastery just for you. I'd like to know what your learnings have been, what your challenges have been, and what have been the good things you've also had, the good news, the testimonies you've had also in the month. Let's share together because you never know who your testimony may just be inspiring, right? So feel free to share in the comment section so that somebody who reads it would just be inspired by your testimony and by the things that have happened for you in the month. And that will just give them hope that they too can experience this in no distant time also. So that's it. So let's get into our gist for Joseph. Now, just in case this is the first time you're coming across this, you have 3 other parts to catch up with, right? There's the part one, there's the part two, there's the part three, and this is the part four, right? Previously, I would do a recap of everything we've learned from part one, part two, part three, and then what we're going to learn in part four. So I would just encourage you to just go look at the previous videos that we've done so that you can just have a full, robust understanding. But one thing I want to tell you is this: you need to understand the character of Joseph. Beyond the fact that he's a dreamer, that everybody just know, okay, Joseph the dreamer, there's something unique about Joseph. There's something worth learning about Joseph. There's something that you can look back and say, yes, Joseph was truly that guy. Joseph was truly that amazing guy. And that's why I would encourage you to probably go back and watch part one, the part two, the part three, and then watch this part so that you can understand the whole journey so far. Because if you just watch this and you know what the previous part, you probably will not get the whole picture, right? It's just like watching a movie, a series, and you're watching the last episode in the series. You probably will not know what has built up to that particular episode. So that's why we encourage you go back and watch part one, part two, part three, and then watch this so you can understand what this whole thing is about. So in part four, right? In part four, there are 5 lessons I'm going to share with us, and we're going to read through scripture to pick out those lessons as we have this conversation, because they are quite important lessons that I want you to understand, to learn, and to see that they are also practicable in your life. You know, one of the things that I share all through the journey of Joseph is the fact that the lessons from Joseph are very practicable. So they are not just lessons that you cannot understand. They're not lessons that are just in the Bible, but they are lessons that even you in your very everyday life now can practice the learning and make it a part of your own life, right? So that's why I encourage you watch the previous episode so you can really understand what this is about and what we are trying to make you get in all of this. Does this make sense? Okay, so Joseph, part 4. Let's get into the book of Genesis, chapter 46. Right, I'm going to do a very quick read in this, and then I will type out the lesson that we need to learn, and then we'll make progress. So let's begin chapter 46 of the book of Genesis. I love that. 46 Genesis. It says, for verse 1, it says, and Israel took his journey with all that he had. You know, at this point, they were coming out to Egypt, right? Joseph had revealed himself to his brothers. He had told them to go get his father. He had informed Pharaoh that he's bringing his parents and his brothers to Egypt. And he had sent wagons and chariots to go bring his father, right? That's what we left off in part 3. Now, let's begin part 4. See, and Israel took his journey with all he had, and he came to Beersheba and offered sacrifice unto God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in the vision of the night, as Jacob now, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will dare make of you a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thy eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father and their little ones and their wives and in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to them. And they took their cattle and their goods, and which they had gotten the land of Canaan, and they came into Egypt. Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons with him, his daughter, and everything. Right? And the name of the place, okay, so this was just a list of all of Jacob's sons and all of those things. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face unto Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet his father to Goshen, and presented himself before him, and he fell on his neck and wept on his neck on a good while. And Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade had been to feed cattle, and they brought their flocks and their herds and all that they had. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call thee, and thou shalt say, What is thy occupation? Thou shalt say, Thy servant's trade had been about cattle from our youth, even until now, both we and also our fathers, that we may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptian. That's 46. Then 47. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, My father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out from the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto the brethren, what is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, a servant, a shepherd, both we and also our fathers. They said, moreover, unto Pharaoh, for to sojourn in the land are we come, for the servants have no pasture for their flock, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servant dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are come unto me. The land of Egypt is before thee, and the best land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell, and if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Joseph brought in Jacob his father and set him before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh blessed, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of my years of my pilgrimage are 130 years few, and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and I have not attained unto the days of the years of my life, of my fathers, and the days of the pilgrimage. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went away from Pharaoh. Okay, so all of this is to remind us two basic things that I want us to start with, right? Two basic lessons to begin with. I'm going to share 5 lessons. So let me just start with the first 2. So the first lesson, lesson 1 in Joseph part 4, is a very important lesson that I feel we should pay attention to. Remember home. Yes, remember home. Now, as much as all of these things were happening, Jacob, right? Remember home. Lesson 1. As much as all of this was happening, Jacob told Joseph, please, when I die, ensure that you don't bury me in Egypt. Take me back to Canaan. Bury me where my father Isaac and Rebekah was buried, where Abraham and Sarah was buried. Bury me back with my fathers. Remember home. You also see this from Joseph, that even Joseph too, even though he was in Egypt, he still remembered home. He still remembered his brethren. Because the whole essence of Joseph being prime minister, something I'm going to share with us in lesson number 5, right? But let me just pay attention. Let me just give us a bit. The whole essence of Joseph being prime minister was not for himself. It was for him to preserve home. Because if Joseph was not the prime minister, at the time when the famine grew worse, people were selling themselves off to become slaves. So Israel and his children would probably have come to Egypt and sold themselves off as slaves. So for that to not happen, Joseph had to preserve home. And that happened because Joseph remembered home. He didn't say, okay, now that he was in Egypt, he was prime minister, he had forgotten everything. He had forgotten where he came from. He still remembered home. That's why when he saw his brothers, he recognized them, even though they didn't recognize him. And he asked them a question: is your father still alive? Is your brother still with him? Because he remembered home. Right? And then, as much as Joseph remembered home, he also made Egypt feel like home. So he gave them Goshen. He told Pharaoh that his father and his brothers have come to him, and where should he give them? Because they were shepherds. And Pharaoh told him, pick the best part of the land, pick the best part in Egypt, and settle them there. And they chose Goshen. So you see, he didn't just remember home, he also made the strange place, Egypt, feel like home for his brethren. He was staying in the palace, but his brethren had a place that felt like home, away from home. That is a very important lesson to pick out from Joseph. You know, there's a popular song that says, no matter where you go, remember the road that leads you home. All right, Bode Thomas. You know, remember that song? Joseph remembered home. And also, he made the strange land, Egypt, that the brethren and his father had come into, to also feel like home. So they didn't feel like they have left Canaan and they have left everything, because where he gave them in Goshen was flourishing. Is this making sense? So no matter where you find yourself, never forget where you came from. Never forget home. You know, they always say that there's no place like home. It's true. Always remember home. Always remember home. Regardless of what had happened to Joseph, regardless of his journey, he still remembered home. He still made Egypt feel like home away from home. That's an important lesson to learn from Joseph. Wherever you find yourself, wherever you go, always remember home. Always remember home. And then also learn to make where you are feel like home. And like people who have this certain mindset that, okay, I'm just here for a few minutes, or I'm here for a few days and I'm out. Even in that few days, make that place feel like home in that few days. Make that place feel like home. It's an amazing mindset to have. It's an amazing culture to live with, to live by. Remember home and make everywhere you go feel like home. That's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 in Joseph part 4. Lesson number 2 is prep for the palace. Prep for the palace. Now, remember that even Joseph, when Pharaoh sent for him, he first shaved his beard and changed his raiment before he went to see Pharaoh. Now, when his brothers were going to meet Pharaoh, he also prepped them. He told them to say, when Pharaoh asks you what's your occupation, let him know that you are farmers. He prepped them for the palace. He didn't make them go to Pharaoh and appear not knowing what they were doing. He didn't make them go there and appear foolish or appear stupid. He prepped them. See, Joseph had a very amazing mindset. Now, his brothers treated him wrong. They did him dirty, right? They did not treat him right. But nevertheless, now they are at his mercy. He did not show them wickedness. You know, I say this a lot to people. I say, do not just let people have a taste of their own medicine. Let them have a taste of your kindness. Let them have a taste of your mercy, not a taste of their own medicine. Do you get that? Let people have a taste of your mercy, not a taste of their own medicine. You know, we like to always say, you give people a taste of their own medicine, let them know how it feels. No, no, no. Don't let them have a taste of their medicine. Let them have a taste of your mercy. And that's what Joseph was doing for his brethren, because he prepped them on how they would behave, how they will respond when they are before Pharaoh. You know, Pharaoh was like the all and all at that time. Pharaoh can do and undo at that time. Right? Remember, when Moses was born, it was Pharaoh that commanded the killing of all male child. All male child, that the midwives were helping them to deliver and hide their babies. While Moses was born, all male child were killed. That's how powerful Pharaoh was. Joseph knowing how powerful Pharaoh was, because Pharaoh had already executed his own baker. Remember, it was the baker and the butler that was in prison. Pharaoh had no time. Like that, just like that. So Joseph understood who Pharaoh was, regardless of the fact that Pharaoh was respectful of Joseph because of what Joseph brought to the table. So he didn't want to put his siblings, his brothers, at a disadvantage in the sight of Pharaoh. So he prepped them for the palace. He guided them on what to say. He guided them on how to behave when they appeared before Pharaoh. And true to his guidance, he made it easy for Pharaoh to say, okay, give them the best land. In fact, select the best among them so they can even manage my cattle. That's because of how well Joseph prepped them. See this, guys, you must prep for the palace. Don't go to the palace the way you go to any other place. You must understand how the corridor of power works. You must understand it. You must know how it works. Don't say, no, they can take me as I am. No, that is a sign that you are not knowledgeable. Nobody wants to take you as you are. That's the gospel truth. Nobody wants to take you as you are. Nobody wants to take you as you are. So you need to understand that, and you need to prep yourself. You need to prep yourself for that. Nobody's going to take you as you are. Stop kidding yourself. Stop kidding yourself. Nobody's going to take you as you are. Don't kid yourself. So, understanding this changes everything about you. It literally changes everything about you. So, it's important, very important, that you help people prep for opportunities, help them prep for the palace, help them prep for the big stage. Don't leave them hanging. And like I said, give people a taste of your mercy, not a taste of their own medicine. Do you understand that? That's what Joseph did. He had largeness of heart, a very large heart. So that's lesson number 2 in Lessons from Joseph part 4. This is lesson number 2. So let's get to lesson number 3. All right, lesson number 3. Now, as you read further in the book of Genesis, and we move on to chapter 'So Jacob was sick, and then he was about to go. He was talking to all his children, and then Joseph brought his 2 sons. So Jacob, his father, so he will bless them. Lesson number 3 is simple but very critical. Understand the blessing. Understand the blessing. Joseph knew that he was a blessed person. He understood that blessing. He knew that even though he left his father's house without anything, he was blessed. So he wanted that same blessing to be impacted on his sons. And he brought his 2 sons to Jacob or Israel to bless them. See, regardless of how your life goes, regardless of the things that you do, you must understand the blessing and you must have the awareness of the blessing. Jacob is a good example of somebody who understood the blessing. When he left his father's house, he didn't carry anything, but he carried the blessing. His father told him, with corn and wine have I sustained you. The smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. Right? He carried the blessing. So he understood the blessing. His son, Joseph, also understood the blessing. So he brought his 2 sons that Jacob would bless them. See, in this life, you must understand the blessing. And the blessing is not in things necessarily. The blessing is in words. Scripture tells us that we have been blessed with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places. You have been blessed. Right? The blessing is in words. We have been blessed. You need to become aware that you are blessed. So Joseph had that awareness of the blessing because everywhere he went, he saw the evidence of the blessing because God was with him. So it was certain. So when he got to Egypt, we saw that in Potiphar's house, it was being blessed because of him. That's the blessing. The carrier of the blessing dissipates the blessing wherever he goes. When he was lied upon and thrown into prison, in the prison, he was still blessed. Soon enough, the jailer put everything in his charge, the blessing. When he came out from prison, he gave the solution for national problem, carrying out national issues, still from the mindset of the blessing. So Joseph understood the role the blessing plays in the life of a person. So he took his two sons to his father and says, while he's still alive, before he goes, he should bless my two sons. Now, I'm not going to focus on when he crossed his hand over on Ephraim and Manasseh. No. The focus is the fact that Joseph understood the blessing and he wanted his sons to carry on with the blessing. You know, it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are people who are carriers of the blessing. Joseph is also a carrier of the blessing. And he wanted his father, Jacob or Israel, to also pass down the blessing on his own sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. That's because he understood what the blessing is all about. He understood what the blessing is all about. So you need to also understand this blessing that you already have, because you have been blessed in Christ. So you today, you are a carrier of that blessing. Anywhere you go, it's supposed to be blessed because you are there. You know, this was pretty normal for Abraham, for Isaac, for Jacob, even for Joseph. Everywhere they went, people could attest that because they were there, the place was blessed. And that's why you see that you are called, you have been blessed to be a blessing. So because you carry the blessing, everywhere you go is blessed because of you. Do you understand this? You are blessed to be a blessing. Everywhere you go is blessed because of you. You are a carrier of the blessing. A carrier. Do you understand this? So Joseph knew this. And he said, my sons must carry on with this. They must have this mindset. Because you know fully well, the sons have been raised in Egypt. They probably may not have known so much about the Israelite culture apart from what Joseph would have taught them. But Joseph felt, I've taught them, yes, but let me carry them to his source. Let me carry them to my father so they can be connected directly. Because you understand the blessing. You know, a lot of people are not aware of the blessing. They're not aware. They're not aware. Because when you become aware, your eyes are open. Just like the servant of Elisha. When he saw the enemies surround them, he was afraid. And Elisha says, I don't get it. Why are you afraid? He says, okay. I think I get it now. Because he had told him, they that be with us are more than they that be with them. In his mind, Elisha is just trying to be hopeful. Elijah said, okay, calm down. Lord opened his eyes so he can see. And his eyes were open. That's the same way your eyes need to be open to know that you are blessed. You may not have money in your account at the moment. It still doesn't stop the fact that you are blessed. You know, Isaac was experiencing famine in the land of Gerar in Genesis 26. And God told him to stay in that same land. Everybody was leaving, but God told him to stay. Why? Because you are not going to where there are greener pastures. You yourself, you are the greener pastures because you carry the blessing. You yourself, you are the greener pastures because you carry the blessing. You carry the blessing. Jacob, the same thing. When you go to Laban's house, Laban said, I have discovered by divination that I am being blessed because of you. Like Laban went to check it out. Like, why am I being blessed? Remember the case of Obed-Edom when they were trying to take the Ark of the Covenant back into Jerusalem, and then the Ark was about to fall, and then somebody tried to hold the Ark from falling, and God struck him. And then they said, okay, let's leave this thing here first. Let's go back and restrategize how we're going to bring this thing into Jerusalem. And in that meantime, they took the ark and left it in the house of Obed-Edom. And for the 3 months the ark was in Obed-Edom's house, scripture says that Obed-Edom flourished and prospered. Why? Because the ark, the blessing, was resting in his house. And just David heard it and said, no, I must find a way to bring the ark of God back into Jerusalem. He has to come back. So Abraham understood the blessing. Isaac understood the blessing. Jacob understood the blessing. Joseph understood the blessing. So a very important lesson to learn is that you must understand the blessing that you carry. You have been blessed in Christ with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places. So you're a blessed person. You are the one talked about in Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of discomfort. But his delight is the law of the Lord. In that law does he meditate day and night. It shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth his leaves in his season, brings us his fruits in his season. His leaves shall not wither, and whatsoever he does prospers. That is the blessing, and you carry the blessing. And Joseph understand that blessing. That's why he brought his 2 sons. That Jacob, his father, would lay his hands on them. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell on the fact that he crossed his hand over both Ephraim and Manasseh. No, that's not our focus. Our focus is on Joseph, the character. So I'm not going to get into Jacob or Ephraim and Manasseh, but just focus on Joseph that understands the blessing and took his 2 sons so that they can be blessed. Because you understand the blessing. And this leads us to point number 4, right? Point number 4, lesson 4. Lesson 4 is what I call reframe. Reframe. Now, finally, chapter 49, Jacob dies, and there's a mourning for Jacob. He had commanded that he be buried back in Canaan. So Joseph, his brothers, and all the people with him, they went back. There was a lot of mourning. They went back and buried him. And now they came back. Genesis chapter 50. They came back to Egypt. And now the brothers were scared. And like, now that Jacob is dead, perhaps Joseph is going to carry out his revenge on us now that our father is gone, because probably he didn't do it because our father was still around. So he probably would not have wanted to upset our father, knowing that, okay, he's the one punishing us for what we did to him. And then they came back to all meet Joseph, and they bowed before him again. This is like the 5th time they are bowing before him. Bowed before him. And they started to appeal and like, oh, now that our father is dead, hope you're not going to arrest us, put us in jail, punish us for what we did to you many years ago. And then look at how Joseph reframed what they did to him. We skip to Genesis chapter 50, right? Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. A very important part to learn from Joseph. And he said to them, from verse 19, and Joseph said unto them, fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. See how Joseph reframed all that they did to him. Another translation puts it clearly and says, you meant it for evil, but God turned it around for good. So all the time that they put him in a pit, they sold him to slavery, they put blood on his coat of many colors to tell his father he has been killed. All of those things were to ensure that perhaps his dream would never come true. Because when they saw him coming afar off in Genesis 39, they said to themselves, yes, 37, they said to themselves, let us kill him and see what will become of his dream. So what they meant for evil, God turned it around. You know, that song, what the enemy meant for evil, God has turned it around. He turned it around. What the enemy meant for evil, God has turned it around for my good. You know, why they felt that was the end of Joseph. 22 years passed, and then they saw Joseph again, but they could not recognize him. Because in their mind, Joseph was dead and gone. Joseph was a forgotten story. It was one of those regrets they had at the point where they realized that, oh, they've done wrong, but they could not right their wrong. Joseph was one of those wrongs they felt they could not right anymore. Because you see that when they were speaking to him earlier, when they had come to Egypt the first time, they were different. They were saying, oh, we had a brother and this something happened to him and all of that. They had changed. But now they thought, okay, now that Joseph is prime minister, now that he has brought us into Egypt, he has given us Goshen, and now our father is dead. Perhaps Joseph may just want to, let me just show them small. Let me just deal with them a bit. Let me give them a piece of their medicine. Like I said, don't give people a piece of their medicine, give them a piece of your mercy. And then they came to Joseph. Joseph reframed it for them and said, see, you meant it for evil, but God turned it around for good. And because of that, relax. I'm not going to do this that you envisage in your mind. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to make you regret. I'm not going to make you feel bad about your actions, because what you were doing was not actually you doing me evil. It was you putting me in the path that God wants me to be in. Because think about it. There is no way Jacob would have allowed Joseph to leave his sight. No way. No way. You know, sometimes I tell people that sometimes people can love you out of your destiny. Literally, people can love you out of your destiny. And because of that, you must be mindful of when the love becomes what now limits you from becoming all that you can be. Because trust me, the way Jacob loved Joseph, Joseph would never have left his sight. Never. But God orchestrated a plan that his brothers would sell him to Egypt. He didn't sell him to another place, he sold him to Egypt. That's why you see Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. So just understanding this just gives you a certain kind of peace. So you must learn to reframe things. Joseph is showing us that. Learn to reframe. Yes, they did you wrong. Yes, they hurt you, but learn to reframe it. If they know better, they probably would have done better. Learn to reframe it. Are you getting this? So you must learn to reframe. Don't just always see things the way everybody expects you to see it. Reframe it. Give it another perspective. Reframe it. Reframe it. That helps you a lot when you do that. It helps you a lot. And Joseph did that for his brother. In fact, that would have been something that really blew their mind, to know that this truly is the mercy of God. He said, you meant it for evil, but God turned it around for good. And who am I to change what God has turned around? Who am I? Who am I to drag steering with God when God is the one that has taken the wheel? Who am I? Joseph had to reframe and help his brothers to reframe. That stop thinking that way. Stop thinking that way. You are here now. You're safe. You have all that you need. That's what you should focus on. Stop looking at the past. He learned to help them reframe. So you must also learn to reframe. Stop looking at your circumstance and your situation one way. Reframe. Learn to reframe. That's the way it helps you as a person. Reframe. So that's lesson number 4. Reframe. And Joseph said, now therefore fear ye not. I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. I will nourish you. I will take care of your little ones. He comforted them and spoke kindly unto them. I told you, give people a taste of your kindness, not a taste of their own medicine. Give them a taste of your mercy, not a taste of their own wickedness. He spoke to them kindly. He comforted them. He said, I will nourish you and your children. So I'm not even going to just take care of you alone. I'm also going to take care of your children. What a reframe. What a reframe. If you didn't learn anything from this series, learn this, how to reframe things that have happened to you. Because that changes a lot of things for you. Learn to reframe. Do you understand that? Learn to reframe. I don't know what you've gone through, guys. I don't know what you are currently going through, but you must learn to reframe. Stop seeing it that, oh, this is happening against me. Look at it that this is happening for my good. This is happening for my benefit. This is a character developing moment for me. This is happening for my good. Reframe it. Learn to reframe. It's a character building moment for me. Reframe. And that's what Joseph did. He reframed everything. This is character building. You meant it for evil, but God turned it around for good. Reframe. Reframe, guys. You must learn to reframe. Joseph showed us he was next in command after Pharaoh. He still realized that home is home, regardless. Family is family, regardless. And he reframed what they had done to him that was evil. He reframed. Learn to refrain. Right? And this leads us to lesson number 5. The last lesson. Lesson number 5. And this is a very big one. I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't say so much about it, but now I'm going to stress on it. I'm going to dwell on it. Lesson number 5. Your dream is not for you. See, if you understand this, it changes everything for you. Literally, it changes everything for you. Your dream is not for you. Your dream is not for you. Joseph had a dream, no doubt. But Joseph's dream is not for him. Joseph's dream was to save his family and the world. That was his dream. The dream wasn't for him. Martin Luther King in the United States says, I have a dream that one day, all right, remember that speech? I have a dream. But the dream, was that dream for him? Not necessarily. That dream was about the liberation of the blacks in America. That dream was to put aside segregation. That dream was not for him. Your dream is not for you. So yes, I dream that I'm going to do this. I dream that I'm going to do that. I dream I'm going to have this. I dream I'm going to have that. But your dream is not for you. When you understand this, it changes a lot about how you live your life, knowing that your dream is not for you. When Potiphar's wife was making advances at Joseph, that would have truncated Joseph's dream. Because if he had slept with Potiphar's wife, he would never have gotten into prison. And he would have remained a slave. And when it was time for famine, when the Egyptians were now selling themselves as slaves unto Pharaoh for food, Joseph would have been sold to Pharaoh as a slave again. Oh, I didn't mention all of those parts. If you read further in that same Genesis 48, 49, the famine grew severe. Money lost value in Egypt. I didn't talk about that because that was not really necessary attached to Joseph's story, so I didn't want to mention that. But there was a point, money had no value in Egypt. Read it, you see it. Money had no value. They had money, they had no food. Money lost value in Egypt. I think I may just need to mention that so it doesn't look like I'm just trying to cap. I think it's in chapter 49. In chapter 49, no. Yeah, chapter 50. No. Wait. Let's backtrack. 48. 48. No, 48 was when he blessed his sons. I guess it's in 47. Yeah, 47. And it says, and when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why would we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for flocks and for cattle and for heads and for asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. So you see, there was a time that money failed. Money actually failed. You know, when people say, oh, money answered all things, money fails. Money failed. Genesis 47, money failed. And then Joseph gave them bread in exchange for their cattle, for their flocks, for all their sheep and all of that. Money failed. But my point here in this fifth lesson is the fact that the whole dream that Joseph had while he was in his father's house, that his brothers hated him for, that they said, let us kill him to see what will become of his dream, was not actually for Joseph. That dream was to preserve his father's house, and that dream was to preserve the world at that time. That was the essence of the dream. That was the essence. So your dream is not for you. Once you understand this, it gives you a certain level of peace, knowing what you are doing is not for you, it's not tied to you, it's not about who you are going to become. It's tied to you fulfilling a purpose. And you see, let's look at this. Who would you even say that is loved the most by God? His brethren or Joseph? Who would you say? I know you're going to say, it was Joseph. Oh, Joseph is loved the most. Like Joseph is loved the most. Look at how God preserved him. Look at how God kept him. Joseph is loved the most. Let me tell you, look at this. His brother sold him to slavery. His brother lied to his father and said he was dead because they presented evidence of blood on his coat of many colors. Right? The brothers lived their own life, had their own children, and continued life. No repercussion, no consequence. And then when there was no food in Canaan, they went to Egypt to buy food. They saw Joseph. Joseph did kindly to them. No repercussion, no consequence. Even when their father died and they were afraid that, Joseph may change his mind, Joseph said, no, I'll still treat you nicely. So who was much loved among his brethren, Joseph or his brethren? It was his brethren. Because all Joseph became was to preserve them, the same people. Like literally the same people who did him dirty, who sold him to slavery, were the same people that Joseph still had to preserve. See, when they say God works in mysterious ways, he sure works in mysterious ways. He sure works in mysterious ways. So with all that Joseph's brothers did, they still enjoyed mercy. They still enjoyed kindness. They never had one setback or consequence for their actions. But don't go and copy them. Don't be like them. Oh. Their own case is different. Their own case is different. And with all Joseph did, you'd have felt, Jesus is going to come from the lineage of Joseph. Jesus came from the lineage of Judah. That's why it's called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Jesus came from the tribe of Judah. So Joseph was to preserve the tribe which Jesus will come from, which is Judah. 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 Right? You understand? That's Joseph. Are you getting this? So Joseph's dream was not for him. It was not for him. It was not for him. So regardless of what you face in your life, it may just be that you are going through all of that for another person not to go through that. But it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. You know, one of the things I do, I tell people all the time that my dream is to see that your dream become real. That's my dream. My dream is to see that your dream become real. That's my dream. And for some people, that's a lot like weird. Like, come on, have your own dream. No, that's my dream. To see that anyone I come across, I help their dreams become real. That's my dream. That's why I'm very passionate about upgrade. That's why I'm passionate to help people leave good behind so that they can upgrade, because there's so much in them. There's so much in them. So that's my dream. Because I realize, even from Joseph's story, your dream is not for you. It's not for you. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years in Robben Island. His dream was not for him to be president. His dream was to emancipate South Africa, to put an end to apartheid. That was his dream. His dream was not for him to be president. But that opportunity came, he became president, but that was not his dream. He didn't go to prison to become president. He went to prison so that apartheid would come to a stop in South Africa. So your dream is not for you. Your dream is not for you. Your dream is not for you. And Joseph is a clear example of that. So, guys, this is where we call it a wrap on the story of Joseph. An amazing series so far, from part 1 to part 2 to part 3 to part 4. I love part 4 the most, right? The points were simple, but they were very deep and had so much depth, so much quality in them. All the other parts, amazing. Amazing. And this part helps us go through chapter 46 to chapter 50 of Genesis. And that's where we wrap up the story of Joseph. Now, if you've been following us, we've been going through a series of stories. We started out with the prodigal son. We looked at the elder brother syndrome. We looked at the prodigal father in Luke 15. That's where that story came from. And then we looked at Jabez. Right? We looked at Jabez, the shortest story in the Bible, 2 Chronicles 4, verse 9 and 10. Jabez. And then we looked at Jonah, amazing guy, 4 chapters, amazing story, Jonah. And now we've looked at Joseph. Quite a lot of chapters, because we started from chapter 37 and we ended in chapter 50. So quite a lot of chapters, but we've covered it. And I'm super glad that you were here for this series. Did you enjoy this? Did you love this? Did you learn something from this? And like I said, all the things you learned on the story of Joseph and from all the stories we've been sharing, they're very practicable. It's things that you can apply in your everyday life. It's not just a story in the Bible. It is what it is. And something that you can practice. Does this make sense? So, guys, I want to appreciate you for joining this. I want to say a very big thank you for joining from wherever you are in the world that you joined this session, to join this series. Thank you so much. Please give us a feedback on how this series has been a blessing for you. Tell us what the lessons that stood out the most for you, for either in part 1, part 2, part 3, or part 4. What really stood out the most for you, because we want to get your feedback to know that, yes, this has been worth your time, right? It has been an amazing series so far. I have enjoyed every single part, from part 1 to part 4. I've enjoyed everyone, and I believe you too have enjoyed it. And I say a very big thank you. Feel free to share this with your friends, families, your loved ones, and even your enemies. And remember, another series is coming. You want to guess what the series will be? Stick around. By next Friday, you're going to know what that new series would be, because another series is coming next Friday. We'll begin another series, and I can't wait. I won't tell you what the series is. Stick around. Friday, going to be unveiled the new series. It's been a season of series so far. I want to continue that, because there's so much to learn while we do this study in series, because we go in depth, right? And it's a way for us to refresh our learning of scripture and how these characters apply to us in our everyday life. Guys, you are amazing. You are the best. I love you. I love you guys. I love you. I love you. Like, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. And I pray you have an amazing month in March, where things will happen for you with ease. Yes, it's your season of ease and no stress in the month of March, your season of ease. And I pray that March, you will march to greater heights, greater achievements, greater fulfillment in the month of March. Your season of ease has just been activated. Get ready to enjoy ease like never before in this month of March. Favor will come easily for you. Help will come easily for you. Like goodness and mercy follows you. This is your season of ease in the month of March. So march on, and march on with ease into all the places you want to get to in the month of March. Once again, thank you for so much for being here. Like we always say, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. And that's why we encourage you to leave good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. See you in March, where you enjoy ease. Thank you again for watching. God bless you.